What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another video. In today's video, we are back with another preview/prediction video. And today we are here to dive into Lions Jaguars Week 11 in the NFL, a chance to get to 9 wins on the season. Meanwhile, the Jaguars reports are if they get blown out in this game, there could be some changes made. So let's get it started. Welcome everybody to a video. Glad you guys are here. Shout out to BetUS for sponsoring today's video. Use that promo code down in the description, YouTube150, to get a 150% deposit match on your first deposit. 125% on your next 2 deposits up to $2,000. Let's jump over here real quick to BetUS's website to take a look at the lines for this weekend's games, man. And if we go right down to the Lions line, it is insane. It has now moved up to -14. So keep an eye on this one. If it moves, maybe some people like it. If it hits like 13.5, 13, it was there early in the week, but now it's jumped to 14. Personally, I don't love the number at 14. If you had me pick a side, I'd pick the Lions to cover the 14 points and still win this football game. If you had me pick one of the two, but I actually like the under for this game because I was actually thinking about going even lower. See my final prediction, but I actually considered even going lower than that. So I'm going to actually roll the under at 47 for this game. I think that's probably your best spot. We could win 18-18, nearly doubling our money, man. So make sure you use that code YouTube150. We had the fights last night. You know, hey, we won some over here on that one, taking Jake Paul. So if you guys want to get on that, man, YouTube150, that's the code. Now let's get to the video. Now today's video is going to be a little bit shorter than our other preview/prediction videos. One, because of when I'm recording this, I have to do this quicker so I can get it out to you guys as fast as possible. But also, number two, for whatever reason, I think my allergies are just driving me nuts. So I'm going to try to make this thing a little bit short and sweet here. And we also touched on a few things yesterday when we went live in terms of the injury report. So I'll kind of fly through that aspect, but we're still going to touch on it, and then we'll get right into this, and we're going to see if we can hit this score prediction. Let's start with the injury report update first. The notable injuries to keep an eye on going into this game. We don't have all the designations yet. First off, on the Jaguars side, no Trevor Lawrence, so Mac Jones will start for the second straight week. Also, no Tank Bigsby, so they'll be leaning on ETN in this game, which is okay because they've done that the last few weeks. He was kind of in and out, Tank Bigsby was. And Ezra Cleveland is listed as questionable, but it seems very much on the table that Ezra Cleveland could be back and playing this week at left guard, which I think would be huge for Jacksonville. I think they've had a huge issue at left guard with Hance stepping in there. It's been a real problem for this team, and you see it, just their inconsistencies at picking up blitzes or stunts, just movement across the defensive line in general, simulated pressure. I think that's going to be a huge get back, especially for their run game, which has, to me, at times looked really bad, but it also has an ability of being very explosive. And I think when you kind of balance out the negatives with the positives for this team, if they can kind of eliminate some of the negatives on early downs when running the football, that would be huge for this team. So Ezra Cleveland could be back. I think that's one of the most underrated injuries to keep an eye on coming into this one. Also, Mason Smith, the rookie out of LSU, is questionable for this game. This is an interior defensive line that's incredibly deep, very rotational, but I think they've been very hit and miss and spotty this year. They have a lot of athleticism up front, however, and Mason Smith fits right into that, so getting him back would be helpful. And then also Keelan Robinson, questionable with a toe. And we did find out today that Yasir Abdullah has been listed out for this game. I think that's how you have to say my man's first name, but he's been out for this game. That's just some depth at the edge rusher position. They're kind of deep at linebacker as well. Now moving on to the Lions side of things, the big injury that we all know of now is Sam Laporta is out. It sounds like he also may miss next week as well, but he's out for this game. I would keep an eye on Shane Zylstra potentially getting a look and maybe a few receptions this week. I think tight ends can be utilized against this defense, and I think a guy like Shane Zylstra, who we really haven't seen pop there, but he's been slowly kind of working his way into the rotation. I think Shane Zylstra could see some opportunities this week to get a few receptions. Broderick Martin's still out. A lot of the long-term injuries, Ife Melifanu, Emmanuel Mosley. Big one, Ben Neiman, he's questionable, but the positive is that we are getting Malcolm Rodriguez back, and Neiman played pretty well last week in times, but we're getting Malcolm Rodriguez back as well as Taylor Decker, which is massive for a team that on the edge has a really strong rotation between Travon Walker, Eric Armstead, Josh Hines-Allen. Like, they have some really good edge rushers out there, so getting him back will be key for this game, especially when you talk about run blocking. So those are the key injuries to kind of keep an eye on as we head into this game. Now let's waste one more time. Let's get right into it, and let's start off with what to expect for me from this Jaguars defense. Let's start with this run defense first, because statistically speaking, this is a middling run defense so far this season. And I think when you watch this team, somewhat similar to their offense, they can really create negatives and they can also get gashed against the run. But they're middling statistically. I think clearly their biggest disadvantage is the interior defensive line that they have, especially once they start to rotate and if a drive gets kind of long, or if you just get further into the game and they're continuing to have to rotate pieces. I think that's where you start to see some issues with that interior defensive line when you see guys like Jefferson step into the game. When you start to see them reach towards their depth, I think you get inconsistent results. Jeremiah Ledbetter, he's been a nice player. They have some upfield attacking defensive linemen that can cause disruption in the backfield. I think their best interior defensive line, probably from a consistency perspective, is Devon Hamilton, who plays that nose tackle role for this team. But even there, it's not dominant in the interior, but he feels like their most consistent piece. So there's just a lot of rotation that goes on the inside. Tyler Lacey steps into interior defensive line. I think he's very hit and miss, a young player out of Oklahoma State. So for me, I think this is a hit and miss interior defensive line that on the edge is kind of what they're known for. Their ability to set the edge, the strength that they have at that position, and especially when they go to some of their heavy personnel defensively to match offensive personnel, and you get a guy like Armstead in there at defensive end when he plays that 6 technique. He is another guy that could definitely stop the run, especially working on tight ends. That being said, though, I think you can go at some of these edge rushers a little bit, and I didn't anticipate that coming in, but I think you could definitely run at Hines Allen. I think especially with tight ends in this game. Now, not having Laporta stinks because he's improved so much as a run blocker there, but I would definitely keep an eye on him in this game. I would keep an eye on the Lions utilizing a fullback in this game, potentially a couple of extra running backs, maybe Vaki and Gibbs being on the field at the same time, or 2 running backs at the same time to potentially lead block here. I think that's very much so on the table to get more linebackers on the field. To me, the most consistent run scheme, as usual, to me, is going to be the zone run scheme for the Lions in this game. I think that they can kind of lean into that in this game. Again, they can create some negatives behind the line of scrimmage, but I do like just the way the Lions match up, especially on the interior, to create movement there. So the key matchup to me out of that will become kind of the tight end play against these edge rushers specifically, and how our tackles handle these edge rushers at the point of attack. But Travon Walker, as good as he is and as tough as he is at that point of attack, I think outside of that, they're a little bit inconsistent in those spots.
To me, this feels like more of a Montgomery game, but because of the nature of their backers, definitely could be more Gibbs, just because he can be more slippery. But I love going at, like here, their 3 technique on the play, making the backside 2-eye here, Hamilton moving him off the backside, not being able to kind of get upfield in a play like this. You can see the Vikings pop the run working at that 3 technique, versus like this, where they work at the nose tackle and on the backside. Look at Ledbetter working the 3 technique, just kind of cross the face of the right guard on the play like this and create a negative.
Duo runs in this game, strong downhill runs, less inside, but a little bit more strong double teams from the interior to kind of move these guys at the point of attack, because I think that's where their issues show up. They definitely have an ability to get into the backfield, but I think at the point of attack, for the most part, all of their interior defensive line are pretty inconsistent at handling those responsibilities. So whether that's trap runs, wham runs, or duo runs, I love those looks in this game. Now, I bring that up because they run a lot of 2-deep safety in terms of their coverage scheme, especially on 2nd and 3rd down, but a lot of 2-deep safety from this team. And because of that, I think you can really look at just getting straight downhill against this team, or running some of those trap and wham runs to get up to the 2nd level against a linebacker room that scrapes and moves down the line of scrimmage incredibly quickly. To me, the outside zone, which again, the Lions typically kind of lean into as an offense, can create explosive runs, mainly through inconsistency linebacker play from this Jaguars defense.
And I'll be clear, I think Lloyd and Alou kind of done really well against the run. You can see the scrape speed. I think they'll miss some tackles, but they do really well filling gaps. But you can see with the defensive line here on the backside, staying in front on Hamilton on this play. And then again, here's a stretch run play. You can see how fast their linebackers get to that point, though they can miss some tackles.
Ventrell Miller, young linebacker who's getting snaps in there. I think there's inconsistency when you see him and just how he fills gaps where they could potentially leave some big runs because of that. I think the weak side runs can be the most used in that spot to kind of go at a guy like Ventrell Miller specifically. And then I like, when you're getting to the outside, I like quick hitters against this team. We've seen teams use kind of the jet handoff. I like those. I don't think the reverse is as effective, but I like quick hitters, jet runs, attack these edge defenders, attack Armstead at that 6 technique, get outside of him, right? Make him move laterally, a guy that can be a little bit tougher at the point of attack, especially against tight ends. Make him play the outside runs. I like quick hitters there, the little touch pass that we do to St. Brown. I like plays like that in this game that can just be rotated in, quick toss or pitch plays as well. I like the quick hitters, a little bit less of the long developing outside runs, a little bit more of those quick hitting outside runs. Help throw off these edge defenders. And also on top of that, I think some counter runs could definitely be in play, especially more of the zone counter runs, again, to be a little bit more quick hitting rather than some of the counter pull runs where it takes a little bit to kind of set up some of those. I like counters. I like misdirection. I just think you got to get a little bit more quick hitters when you're attacking the outside against this team. So matchup to watch, Devon Hamilton at nose tackle against Frank Ragnow in this game up front.
And when you look at where the explosives come from, it would make a lot of sense to utilize Gibbs in some of the scenarios that you typically use Montgomery, those downhill run schemes, to utilize Gibbs in those spots because they make sense schematically, but the explosives come from making a quick cut, bouncing off of one of those runs where everybody's working downhill. In that case, now you create an explosive. So the scheme, I think, fits more Monty, but Gibbs could actually have the game-changing ability where if you run towards those Monty schemes with Gibbs, you may actually have the opportunity to make some big plays. And I show a play like this because it's a nice little RPO. I think Lions could utilize this, put their edge rushers in in the action. Obviously, we're not going to do much zone read, maybe in the goal line situation, but maybe some of this RPO look to potentially slow down these edge defenders.
I think they're going to have issues at the point of attack dealing with our run game in this game. So this was something that I was a little bit concerned of coming into this game. I thought that this was a pretty good run defensive team, and I think that they have good linebacker play here. They will miss some tackles, they'll miss some gaps, so I think occasionally they'll break some runs just by them filling in properly. But for the most part, I think it's going to come down to how well we're able to create movement up front, and I think we're going to have some real success with that. And then again, also the tight ends against their edge defenders in this game, something to watch for sure. Now, onto the pass defense for Jacksonville. As bad as they have been statistically speaking, I actually really like the pass defense from Jacksonville. I think what they do well is so much of this 2 deep safety, so much of this match coverage defensively, so much Tampa 2 defensively. They do a nice job of not giving you like wide open throws through their cornerback play, so they kind of disrupt throwing those outside shots. And then the middle of the field, again, they have so much of the matching between safeties and backers that it can be difficult to just find wide open windows against this team in coverage. They do a pretty nice job, I think, of protecting the shot plays because of the way that they play schematically as well. So I actually like this coverage. I think the issue comes down to the fact that they're on the field way too much, and they're also unique in the sense that they don't really blitz at all. 13% rate. The only time I really ever see them blitz is when they go cover one, which is not usual anyways, when they go cover one blitz. And then on top of that, they also don't create a very high pressure rate, but a lot of that is also the fact that, hey, they don't blitz whatsoever. So that kind of plays into each other. They lean more so into, we're going to take away passing windows, and you'll see it. They'll drop 8 into coverage more than most teams, especially in obvious passing downs. Tampa 2 will drop 8 into coverage, will drop 8 in the red zone. So they do a nice job of kind of limiting your options and trying to make it difficult to find reads, and then trusting the front forward, sometimes their front 3, to get after the quarterback.
And to reinforce that point of using coverage over rush, like look here, they put 3 safeties on the field to not even get a backer on your running back. They'll put a safety on your running back. And again, they'll lean more into dropping coverage rather than blitzing in these spots.
Couple things. First off, just to start with that cover one defense, while they don't do it a ton, and we'll talk about when they do it, I would keep an eye on fast motion, short motion in this game. I think you're going to see it kind of utilized a ton in this one with some speed. Jamison, Khalif, especially without Sam Laporta. Number one, if it's in a man coverage look, we saw Philadelphia find success with this. This is a team that against those bunch looks, they play inside outside, and they'll put their safeties into the mix, and because of that, you can find an opportunity to get their safety one-on-one with the receiver by utilizing that motion and then crossing the field, especially in those cover one looks where they're not going to have help. And I think that's an area that you could definitely attack as long as you're on time within passing the football in those spots. I think that's going to be the story of the game for Jared Goff. Is his success will rely on being on top of the chains, which will come down to that run game, and I think that they will be on top of the chains. I think you could definitely run the ball on first down against this team. And secondly, it'll come from just trusting your guys to go one-on-one and letting it rip. You're not going to get as many just wide open holes in zone unless you're specifically talking underneath. So more so about just pressing the football, trusting your guy to win one-on-one, and trusting those reads to get the ball out on time, especially when you talk about implementing some of that motion. I also do like, especially against man look, some of those delayed routes out of the backfield, the play action boots, the delays to the tight ends in that spot, put their linebackers into coverage responsibilities where they have to play run and pass, especially with the way I think we're going to run the ball, and make those and get those zone defenders to drop out into coverage, open up the flats, take the check down, stay on top of the chains. I think that's how Goff becomes efficient in this game, is he's going to be throwing a lot on top of the chains. I think that's the recipe for success. It usually is, but I think it's very attainable in a game like this. Use underneath threats, right? Take the flats in those spots, make those cornerbacks come up and make a play, be willing to go underneath, be willing to live in the run after catch. I also wouldn't hate a wrinkle of like, hey, Sione Vaki at receiver at times in this game. Jahmyr Gibbs at receiver in this game. I wouldn't hate that either, making these linebackers run and chase some of the speed without having a guy like Laporta, because typically I'd like that matchup, but I wouldn't hate utilizing that as well. And I think the Lions are well positioned where if this team plays to what they typically do schematically, they'll have wrinkles where, depending on who they're playing, you'll see more cover 3, and you're like, okay, that's a little bit different. But because of the 2 deep, the cover 4, the Tampa 2, I think the Lions are well positioned as a team to utilize St. Brown in some of those underneath zone windows between cornerback and the number 2 underneath defender in zone coverage between the middle linebacker and the outside corner. I think the Lions are well positioned with St. Brown to utilize him a ton, to kind of sit down, pick up 4 to 5 yards, and just be efficient offensively into this game. And also, against so many of these Tampa 2 looks, a couple of things that I would like to see. Number one, obviously doubled route concepts, double post, double dig routes, clear out, right, find kind of that second level throw, but also mirrored route concepts, especially whether that's to the weak side of the formation. So if you go heavy on one side and the linebacker is going to open that direction in that Tampa 2 look, because because their linebackers in Tampa 2, a lot of times it's Aluakon. He does a nice job of kind of playing an in-between game where he's not just absolutely going to take the seam. Like, he's going to kind of play in between with that, and he reads it well and he plays fast. I think that's why he's been so good in coverage in those spots for Jacksonville. But in those spots, I like to see you attack the weak side of that where his eyes aren't going to be, to kind of test some of his athleticism and be able to change directions, flip back around and find it. But also then mirrored route concepts. And I wrote this down, and then I watched Philadelphia utilize it in the red zone because you're going to see a lot of Tampa 2 there. And I loved how it worked, right? Running mirrored post or running mirrored seam routes on both sides where he's going to have to pick one side and you go back the other, and trusting yourself to hit those windows. Again, for Goff in this game, it's going to be about being on time, trusting his guys in those small zone spots that you do get, and just letting it rip and letting your guy go win one-on-one. But it has to be on time. I thought Sam Darnold got in trouble a lot last week of everything was not on time. He could have thrown way more than 3 interceptions, where when he was trying to do something late, he liked the matchup, but he got there late to it and he still threw it. That's where he got into trouble. We can't be doing that offensively. If it's there on time, let it go. If it's not, check the ball down, let somebody go do something after the catch. But don't get caught in the mode of, hey, we're throwing something late. I think you're going to get into trouble a lot in this game. Look, credit to Jacksonville. That's what they like to do in their pass defense. They like to force you to try to find something that's not there because they'll drop out so many pieces in the coverage. But for us, get the ball out of your hands, let our guys work after the catch, and don't get caught in the world of trying to hold on to the football too long. I think that just screams disaster for you offensively. First down, you're typically going to get more of kind of those cover 2 and Tampa 2 looks with some 2-man coverage mixed in, as well as some cover 2. You'll get some occasional cover 3 because they'll mix it up, but this is a heavy 2-deep team. Cover 2, Tampa 2, cover 4.
Now, we know that 2 deep, the middle of the field, kind of the soft spot between the safeties, but when they're 2-man looks, because they play at different levels with their safeties, you can kind of get a tell based on the leverage pre-snap who's going to have it. And again, you can kind of find that soft spot, whether that's zone or in man in spots like this. You can kind of find a soft spot with how the defensive back is lined up. So look for quick throws like that. And again, that's where Saint could eat. They may put a safety to help, so go opposite.
They'll palms it, so they'll kind of match it up in cover 4.
No, offensively, the benefit is that you can get guys to carry coverage that they don't want to carry coverage. Here, you can see they give up the flat on a play like this, kind of protecting the verticals. You can see the 2 middle field safeties kind of lurking through the hash marks, and you have this check down if you take it and let him work after the catch. But here with this motion, you can see they get Jerry and Jones to cover the wheel, and he's forced to carry because the help is to the inside. But you also can get over top because you see how that safety is sitting on top of the tight end there, waiting. If that goes vertical, he has to carry that. So now all of a sudden, you get him to lurk down on the play action. You can get behind. So Lions may try something similar to last week against kind of the 2 deep, cover 4 looks to try to get a shot plate, maybe again at Jameson. It would make a ton of sense. But I feel the best way to attack this is making it a leverage game. And you can see with that motion where he's running vertical on the outside against Darian Jones, but you see how he has inside leverage? That's where you run that fast motion, comeback route, or deep out route with Khalif because you have the leverage on the play with the motion. Lions will be looking for leverage all day against this team.
Then also some of the straight 2-man coverage, but they'll kind of play their 2-man at different levels between the safeties where they're not just playing on top and pressing everybody. They'll kind of play it at levels, so one will be high, one will be a little bit lower, and they'll also do that to who is your best weapon. We saw against Philadelphia, the levels were, hey, we're going to play 2-man, but our safety's going to drive over top to go help on AJ, and then our opposite safety's going to kind of play underneath and kind of lurk a little bit underneath in those spots. Second down and long, this is a team that, again, cover 4 and 2-man coverage. They can kind of play a little bit of both in those spots where, again, they're going to do a nice job of carrying some of those routes underneath between their backers, and then, again, the 2-man looks, which you kind of roll safeties a little bit. When you get to kind of the second down and medium spots, that's where you'll start to get some of the cover 1 implemented a little bit, but it's still Tampa 2, it's still cover 4, and then in the short yardage situations, still Tampa 2 coverage where a lot of times they'll start to show man in those spots, then drop into it, but then also that's where you'll get the drop 8 spots and also occasionally cover 1 in those spots as well. That's where they'll start to come to life in some of those short yardage situations.
And again, in 2-man coverage, look at the leverage. You can tell where safeties are going on the plays pre-snap. You can see at the top of the screen that the defensive back is inside, so the safety is going to go outside. And at the bottom of the screen, you can see that the defensive backs are outside, so the safety is going to settle back inside. So you can kind of get a leverage tell pre-snap. And having a defense that will match personnel, you could find their matchups, tight ends on backers, and fortunately without our guy, Shane may be that guy in this game, pick plays, rub routes just like this. And like I said, maybe you put a running back in that spot and kind of use them the same way because they'll match it still with a backer.
And then finally on third down, again, showing man, dropping into Tampa 2 looks, and then on third and long, you're going to get Tampa 2 looks, and on third and short, start to see more of the man coverage come out a little bit there. That's where I like to see trying to get on the safeties. If you're looking for matchups, if Jerry and Jones is in there at slot corner because you have a lot of receivers on the field, go at Jerry and Jones. If you can also find matchups with Monteric Brown, I think that's how you say say his name. Hopefully I'm saying that right. With Tyson Campbell being back, Ronald Darby's played at a high level. Monteric Brown is someone that I think you also would choose to kind of go after in coverage a little bit in this game rather than going out the other two cornerbacks who are really good. Campbell, of course, his fast physicality. Now, Tyson Campbell can get beat off the line, so I think you could see instances where Jameson beats him early on reps, or potentially that could be St. Brown as well by just beating him off the line of scrimmage, but his physicality, his ball skills is the problem there. And then Ronald Darby, I think, is just a very good off-coverage zone type of corner that can get into spots and make it difficult to find windows. I really like their personnel. I don't think they have a lot of liabilities in the back end. So again, to me, it's going to come through more of the schematic design rather than just finding great matchups to attack over and over.
And as you see here, third and medium, show man, then they go straight cover two. But you can see the linebacker does not stop playing an in-between game on the dig route. And again, make them respect the flats. Make them go up and tackle. Make these cornerbacks go out and make plays in space where you can be a little bit hit and miss. Make them make plays in space.
So fast motion, short motion is going to be in play, I think, a lot in this game. Utilizing the underneath passes. You'll see St. Brown, I think, kind of working the underneath little intermediate level where you kind of pull the seam and you make their linebackers make a play. And they're trusting those windows to work after the catch. I think St. Brown's in line for a high volume game if they stick to what they've done schematically. And then I would also like to see a little rotation of some of the running backs potentially in some of those spots to try to find those matchups.
And as always against the two-deep team, man, high-low reads, but specifically that soft part of the coverage, right? Right inside of that outside corner, but between the middle linebacker, that becomes a really soft part of coverage. So you see the delayed whip route or in a place like this where you peel it off with the slot fade, just those little sit-downs.
I think they're indisciplined at times. They can be inconsistent in coverage, especially when you're throwing on early downs. You put Miller into the action a little bit. He could be very inconsistent in those spots. Third down, the biggest thing is they're going to try to give you time. They're going to work at you with a four-man rush. I mean, you'll get occasional cover one spots here, but typically you're going to get 8-man drops into coverage. Even in some of their cover zero looks, they're still dropping out 2 rat defenders underneath. So they're not a team that's going to go all out blitz, try to get you the ball in their hands fast. They're going to make you kind of hold on to the football a little bit, which could find some success. Definitely utilize screens against this team. I think getting out into the flat, allowing guys to lead block, overloading the coverage a little bit with screens can also be very useful. Again, kind of leaning into some of those run after catch opportunities like we saw last week. And then when you get to some of those red zone spots, it's going to be Tampa 2. It's going to be cover 4 coverage. Screens. I think you can run the ball against those 2 high safeties on early downs in those spots as well. Be very willing to run the ball in those spots. Again, that's where the mirrored concepts kind of come into play a little bit as well. Then once you get inside the 10, a lot of the cover 4 looks is what you're going to get defensively there. So you might have to hit some tight window throws on some in-breaking routes or potentially use Tim Patrick one-on-one on the outside if you trust him to just go win one-on-one in those spots as well. This has been a team that's been pretty poor on third down defensively. They're below average, allowing 43% conversion rate this season, and they've also been below average in the red zone at 23%, at 23rd as well. This is a team that doesn't create a lot of pressure, third lowest in football, but they also have the lowest blitzing rate. So they're a unique coverage team. I actually respect their coverage. I respect what they do. I think they're difficult to just find like wide open routes. So I think schematically you're going to have to do a good job of just playing on time in this game and really finding a way to lean into the ground game. I don't think it's a terrible defense. I think they're put in a lot of bad spots. I think they're on the field way too much. Minnesota had 43 minutes of time of possession. They were constantly getting thrown back on the field because of inability to convert by that Jacksonville offense. They were just put in bad spots over and over, and they still held that team to 12 points, which is incredibly impressive. You just have to stay on time, and I don't think Darnold constantly plays like that, which is why he got himself into trouble. So efficiency, staying on top of the chains with the run game, and being able to let it rip on time is going to be very important for us offensively. Now, onto the flip side of things, defensively in this game, this has been one of the better rushing units actually in football. Even without Tank Bigsby, it's 10th in rushing, 4.7 yards per carry. And to me, the big reason for that is they have a lot of upside to create explosive runs. And a lot of times, to me, that comes through some of their outside zone rushing attack. You get a lot of split zone looks where they'll have their tight ends very involved in the ground game. Now, I think inline blocking isn't their biggest strength, especially when Evan Ingram is asked to inline block. I don't think that's a very big strength. So I want to see us dominate that matchup. Josh Paschal, Zadarius Smith, Trevor Nowaski. I want to see us do a really good job against their tight ends in line. I think that could really swing how this game looks. But this is a team that creates explosive because they have an explosive running back that opens that up through cutback lanes. Their outside zones typically are very much so behind their tight ends with a lot of those split zone looks. And then also they're going to have those dive and inside runs that, again, are going to get set up a lot of cutback opportunities through their tight ends on counter runs. You'll see that as well. So to me, they're going to throw edge rushers into the action a ton. Josh Paschal, Za'Darius is going to be great to have him in a game like this. And also a lot of where they can find success is through the right side of the offensive line. Brandon Sheriff, but specifically it's Anton Harrison. It's the young tackle who does a great job of sealing down blocks, sealing down on the backside, and creating those big cutback lanes. So that matchup, whenever Za'Darius is out there against Anton Harrison, it's going to be one to circle and watch, because it's not just what he does as a pass rusher, but it's also going to be really run defense and how well he handles that. It's an opportunity for Za'Darius to be thrown into the action a ton, and I'm sure they're going to test him. And if Za'Darius is out there for enough snaps, how does he handle that responsibility? Because he is going to be in the action, to me, a ton in this game. I think a key is going to be handling the interior double teams because of so many of their run scheme and so much explosiveness that comes off of it. DJ Reader or Lee McNeil, they've done a great job. I'm confident in those guys. I think Jack Campbell is in line to rack up a ton of tackles in this game against the run, so I'm pretty confident there. To me, that has been a big aspect and an issue for them, is just inconsistency running the ball. The Lions may very much so put a safety into the box on early downs to kind of minimize some of their success running the ball on first down with Mac Jones, to just say, hey, go beat us somewhere else. I think we may see a lot of early down cover 3 looks in this game, cover 1. We may see a heavy mix between that, where the Lions are really focused on taking the run and keeping them ineffective on first down, because to me, the biggest issue for Jacksonville that I've noted, just as a whole, is they don't seem to have a great foundation offensively. They don't know what to get to. They don't have something that's consistently like reliable, like, man, like the back of our hand, we're going to go to this run concept and we're going to cook you here. They don't have that. Now, they have variety. They have power runs, counter runs, zone runs. They have variety in how they like to rush the football, but they don't have something that they get to like the back of their hand, and I think their run game is clearly the most sustainable thing that they'll try to get to. So I think we're going to see a lot of more one safety deep. They're going to focus on taking the run away, and I think that's what you're going to really notice in this game. That when you talk about passing the football, look, man, I understand Mac Jones had some really shaky things happen at the end of the game, but I didn't dislike the way that he played for a lot of it, especially early in that game. Mac Jones came out. He's a smart player, man. He's smart. He understands coverage schemes. He understands team tendencies, and he typically knows where he wants to get with the football. I think their pass scheme as a whole, though, the issue that they're having for me is that a lot of their pass concepts, number one, they don't get to their third read. There's a lot of things that seemingly happen half field, and if it's not there, there's not really a great answer for them. They like to run drive concepts on the backside where you'll get a backside dig and then kind of a little drag route, and I don't think enough they get to that. So a guy like Gabe Davis, who's very impactful, he's a big intermediate threat. I don't think he gets nearly involved as much as he should, but if the Lions are in cover 3, he's going to get a lot of targets on out routes, deep curls. I just don't think they do a great job of getting to that third read. Majority of their concepts that we do see that they do attack break over the middle of the field. You get a lot of levels concepts. That's where the majority of their concepts are going to set up. So because that, again, cover 3 can be effective, you take away the middle of the field, you close the middle of the field off. They do a nice job on early downs with one deep safety of running flood concepts. So however you want to manage that as a defense, whether that's matching coverage and trying to carry kind of a corner route that gets set up in those flood concepts, maybe that's at the snap disguising and saying, okay, we're showing cover 3, but we're actually going to drop out of it because we have to take away the flood. That's really been their best answer, is play action flood concept against cover 3, and they found some occasional success against it. And I think on second and third down, especially second and long or third and long situations, most teams that I've seen have kind of dialed it back into 2 deep safety looks and try to do a nice job of kind of funneling into double coverage rather than allowing them to have just straight one-on-one routes. I mean, this is a team that when you look at what they run concept-wise, a lot of curls, a lot of deep curls, a lot of wheel routes, a lot of digs, which again, sometimes that's a lot of side more on the backside, and corner routes. So teams to me have set back into more of like, hey, we got them in second and long, second and 10, second and 8. We're going to go 2 deep safeties. We're not even going to mess with giving you a one-on-one. I think their issue, though, however, is I don't think they know who their number 1 receiver is. I think they have pieces, intermediate. They like to get to Gabe. I think Evan Ingram's a big intermediate. Like, hey, when we need it, we're going to Evan Ingram. He kind of feels like the number 1 a lot of times. And then you have Brian Thomas, who still feels kind of gadgety in this offense, where you get like some screens and you'll get vertical shots to him, but there's just no consistency there. I don't think they know who their number 1 guy is, and I think that's a problem. So I think that as much as most teams run 2 deep, the Lions could easily say, I'm going to play with that. We're going to bring extra rushers. You go find someone to beat us one-on-one. I think the issue with that is it simplifies it for this offense, and it gives them more confidence because it's going to be more simplified in terms of, I just have to throw it to somebody and see if it can go win. So I think that's the problem with that, is you're going to simplify it, which seems to be the biggest issue for this offense, is they don't get past 2 reads offensively. They have issues dealing with extra guys dropping into coverage or disguised coverage. It slows down their offense completely. So I think you're kind of giving them an out if you do that, but they have issues in pass protection, big issues, even with Ezra Cleveland back, especially on that right side. They have issues in pass throw, so I don't doubt that you'll get pressure. pressure. Mac Jones is really kind of only opened up kind of the backside of the field. To me, he was opening up when he was able to create broken plays, so you may minimize broken plays by bringing extra rushers as well. I just think that the biggest thing you're going to be giving them in that spot is just confidence to let the ball go. And I think that's the biggest problem. But the Lions have been that this year. They've trusted their guys in those spots, so I don't have an issue with it, but I just do think that two deep safeties, it just causes problems for this offense because they're not great at finding answers against coverage defensively. They're a very heavy short to medium passing offense with less shots, especially on schedule, so you're going to get a lot of that running back out of the backfield. Let's work the right side of the field heavily. They seem to do a lot of that concept-wise, work to the right side of the field, especially with Mac Jones in this game.
If the Lions are rolling zone because of that, Alex Anzalone becomes the player of the watch. The tight end usage for Strange, the flats, the running backs, he'll be in the action a lot, I assume.
I think you can create hesitation through disguising coverage. One thing that you'll notice with this offense is on early downs play action, again, they'll do that, but also they'll utilize a lot of motion to try to clear out concepts that they can just get to. If they don't get to it, I don't think they're great at finding the next read. I think it then immediately turns into a check down, which becomes a problem for them. But that's what you have to do. You have to play 1-2, right? You have to, I think to me, your best success is if you can get them beyond read 1, you're probably going to find success against this team, right? That being said, though, I don't know the Lions will play it that way. Now, if you can get them beyond read 1 by blitzing and playing man because the first guy's just not there, you're going to probably get this team into a lot of negative plays offensively. So it could be very simply that Aaron Glenn just says, trust my guys, I'm going to get after you, and I'm going to throw that off. But this is really one of those games where it's truly get him past read 1 because they do so much. They'll motion pre-snap. They'll try to create zone openings. Motion a lot of times to me sets up to how can we get this one guy open? How can we open the zone coverage to get ETN the football? And I think so much of that is possible against zone. It could be a little bit more like, hey, this is not even helpful against man coverage, and that's why the Lions may simplify and just be like, let's just play fast against this team and let's get after them and just be incredibly aggressive and try to make Mac Jones play off his back foot all game long. So I think it's an interesting balance. I think you could have success both ways. I think you could have success by disguising too deep, not letting him have, confidence of like who's one-on-one and just taking those shots. But the opposite side, if you get Mac Jones playing backwards, I think that you could also have success because I don't think their offensive line does a great job picking up linebackers.
A sleeper for a sack in this game could be a guy like Josh Paschal, working on Walker Little at left tackle if Zadarius Smith is at right tackle. I think power is the best way to beat him, and that could be the perfect matchup for Paschal to actually find some real success. And then that matchup between Zadarius and Anton Harrison, who's played really well the last few weeks.
I don't think they do a good job with simulated pressure either. I think that right side of the offensive line, you should be running stunts all day. Let Zadarius crash inside. He's going to give them problems, I think, on that side. And on third down, they're a very poor team, and I think you see that 33%. It's because of the fact that they don't seem to know who to go to in those spots, but they are 12th in the red zone. And a big part of that is also running the football. Plus, offensively, as you said, who's their biggest weapon to watch for? To me, it's the tight ends, man. I mean, Evan Ingram's a nice piece, and they love to use him. Again, he feels like they're number one, but Brenton Strange has been a really good piece, especially play action, getting him into flats, letting him work after the catch. I think Brenton Strange, his run after catch ability has been a big part of this team. ETN, that's their biggest threat to me, is so much of these guys can do things once the ball hits their hands. Ingram, Strange, ETN. That's, to me, becomes their biggest threat offensively, rather than just winning one-on-one on the outside. Teams have done a nice job of negating that and not kind of giving him that out of a straight one-on-one, because I'll tell you what, when Mac Jones sees it, he can read it and he can find it, right, if you're giving them one-on-ones on the outside. And I think you'll build confidence potentially there, or you could also destroy his confidence by getting home. And I think the Lions will do that. So knowing AG, I expect him to be crazy aggressive in this game. I think he's going to go after this team. But if it was me, I don't know that I would be. I think on second and third down, I'd be a little bit less aggressive. First down, I might be aggressive as heck against this team. Like, hey, force him to get the ball out of his hands, one deep safety, stop the run, blitz the run, let's get you behind the chains, then we're going to play too deep. Now you show me you could find an answer when we start moving coverage around. Aaron Glenn might play that a little bit differently, just knowing how Aaron Glenn plays things. But that being said, that's probably how I would do it. So because of that, man, to keep this thing short and sweet, I think that this is a legitimate defense. I think it's a very legitimate defense. They're just unique. They just can't be on the field all day long. And I think the longer they're on the field, the more exposed that they become. But this is a legitimate defense that knows who they are. They sit into two deep looks all game long. They're going to make you play underneath, and the Lions have to be efficient. They have to stay on top of the chains with the run game, and they have to be willing to take what's given and not hold on to the ball. So I think for us, I was initially at 20-6. I feel like, kind of like, I think it was like the Atlanta score last year. We beat them 20-6 at home, but I'm going to go a little bit higher. I think both teams could score a little bit more. I'm going to roll 27-13 Lions in this game. 20-6 felt strong early in the week, but I'm going to say I think there's a little bit more on the table for scoring in this game potentially. Maybe some weird things happen, but I think 20-6 makes a ton of sense. I just struggle with that low of a score at home, so I'm going to go 27-13 Lions by 14. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Shout out to BetUS. Use that code YouTube150, and I'm out.